This is Nathan Lindorf with the Rational Independent. Today we're going to jump back into the border controversy and the many ways in which the left is brilliant at messaging. Way better than the GOP, especially within their own spheres, which is most of the media. So first we're going to talk a little bit about the effort to impeach DHS Secretary Mayorkas. So impeachment is the constitutional remedy for elected officials acting badly, frankly speaking. You can impeach judges. You can impeach federal officers. You can impeach the president. Impeachment says, hey, a bunch of the more reasonable-minded people in the world see that you are acting way out of line. We want you out. It's a fairly straightforward remedy. It's laid out in the Constitution. There are standards for it. You either hit those standards or you don't. Most famously, we impeach presidents. But that's not the only thing that impeachment can be used for. And frankly, being a fan of the Constitution, I think it would be great if we used the remedies baked into the cake, as it were, more often, not less often. It would be really nice to be able to hold people accountable for misbehavior. But DHS, go away, video. House GOP effort to impeach Homeland Secretary, Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas failed in embarrassing fashion Tuesday as 3 Republicans joined Democrats in voting against what would have been the second ever impeachment of a cabinet official. So in 240 some odd years, we've impeached one cabinet official. I think we should do that more often, not less often. Let's make this a regular feature. Both sides, as it were, have administrations that act badly and go out of bounds. Let Congress give them teeth and have them go after misbehaving executive branch officials. It's a balance of powers thing. I think it's totally fine. But it's the second ever. 214 to 216 is a stunning loss for the GOP. Not really. Anyone who's looked at this with, clear eyes can see Republicans hold a razor-thin margin. And anything that's remotely controversial is a vote that's going to cost Republican congressmen and women in purple districts, congresspeople who barely won election. And so they're going to be hesitant to do controversial things. But to have such a narrow majority requires that basically every single person in your caucus vote party line to get it done, because you're not going to get any Democrats on something like this. And so you end up in a position where you have to force the Republican caucus to all act together to accomplish something that is politically caustic, that's controversial. And they lost by 2 votes. I mean, 1 vote being switched and you're tied, if I'm doing my math right. That's not embarrassing fashion. What would be embarrassing is if the Republican committee that passed these impeachment charges to the body, they passed it in committee, it went to the main body, and it got voted on in Congress, and 12 Republicans voted for it, and 400 some odd voted against it. Vast bipartisan refusal of this measure. That would be embarrassing. But it's convenient to the narrative, so let's call it embarrassing. All right. So apparently there was a surprise appearance from a Democrat rep who came after surgery, came in with hospital scrubs and no socks. All right. There were 2 expected GOP no votes from Colorado and California. And then someone from Wisconsin also voted against it. And that suddenly made it very tight and it was very dramatic. In his statement after the loss, DHS Secretary encouraged Republicans to abandon the effort entirely. This is what I wanted to focus on. This baseless impeachment should never have moved forward. It faces bipartisan opposition. That's one of the Democrats' favorite tricks, by the way. If one Republican votes for their thing, bipartisan support. If one Republican votes against it, bipartisan opposition. Technically true, but not actually substantively true. What are you going to do? And legal experts. Oh, man. Well, the legal profession generally leans left, so shockingly, they found some legal experts who agree with them. Ask 5 lawyers for an opinion. You'll get 5 different opinions. finding legal experts who feels a certain way, it's not that big a deal, resoundingly say it is unconstitutional. No. Press X to doubt. If House Republicans are serious about border security, they should abandon these political games and instead support the bipartisan National Security Agreement in the Senate to get DHS the enforcement resources we need. That turns our attention to the border bill. They are a disaster. Democrats disgusted by GOP reversal on securing the border. Again, this idea, this narrative piece we're talking about, that the GOP's, that they have reversed, that they have pulled the Uno reverse card, that they've said, oh, just kidding, that's not what we wanted. We asked you for it and you gave it to us, but that's not what we wanted. The narrative that's being set is that this bill would solve the border, that the border should be solved, and that the Democrats should get credit for solving the border. That's the narrative. And that the Republicans are acting in bad faith, that they are vassal slaves to Donald Trump's will, and that what they have said is, we do want to solve this, but we want to wait for our guy to be in office so we can get credit for solving it. BS. I try and keep this somewhat child-friendly, so that's as strong as I'm going to go, but that is a crap narrative, and the numbers bear that out if you're willing to take a look at it. We'll see. Let's see if they go into any substance in this article. Senator Chuck Schumer said mean things about the GOP. Shocking. Okay, Senate Democrats teed off on the GOP. Again, bipartisan compromise legislation. If you get one Republican to support it, it's bipartisan. They said was urgently needed to secure the U.S. border following pressure from former President Donald Trump. Nothing to do with a widespread vocal opposition to this bill from across the right-leaning spectrum. Commentators, news outlets, politicians. It's not just Trump that's saying this is a bad deal, don't take it. But it's convenient politically to hang it around Trump's neck, because then if you don't like Trump, it helps you implicate and smear your feelings about Trump all over the Republicans in general. Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut, one of the negotiators, said they are a disaster right now. How can you trust any Republicans right now? They told us what to do. We followed their instructions to the letter, and then they pulled the rug out from under us in 24 hours. There isn't a Republican, okay, maybe Mitt Romney. If you could query the Republican base, or even most of the Republican politicians, and ask them how they would design a border bill to improve the issues that they see, none of them would come up with this bill. This bill is a Democrat, leftist, mass immigration, open borders mess. This is a made-to-order crisis. And the solution to the crisis makes everything worse. Politics 101. Never let a crisis go to waste. Murphy was the lead Democrat in charge of negotiating a set of bipartisan reforms to address the influx of migrants. You mean the invasion of illegal aliens? You know, since we're just using specific words, let's use the right words. Over the weekend, after 4 months of negotiations, Murphy released a bill that ran into a buzzsaw of GOP opposition within minutes of being made public because it was trash. I don't care how long it took you to write trash. You reveal it to the world and it's trash. People are going to go, oh, look, you gave us trash. Where's the problem with that? The backlash on the right was so fierce that Langford himself has distanced himself from the bill. Good grammar. On Tuesday, Senate GOP leaders drove the final nail in the coffin, suggesting that the Senate now move to pass a standalone U.S. foreign aid bill without the border provisions, even though they were the ones who insisted on them in the first place. I think you could have gotten the Republican base to swallow tying these legislation objectives together. I don't like it, but I could see people being like, fine, whatever. But that's a red herring. They're saying, look at the way the Republicans forced us to put this together, and now they want to split it apart. Okay, well, if you gave the Republicans a border bill that substantially improved the circumstances, I think you could have gotten the Republican Party to say, fine, whatever, we'll give you your money for your pet projects, just secure the border. Instead, you gave them a bill that makes the border worse, and you're complaining that they didn't like it. It's 100% clear what's happening here. The truth is simple. In the end, they sided with Donald Trump. That's the cardinal sin in the leftist religion. You can't side with Donald Trump, ever. Who wants chaos at the border because it helps him politically. This is one of the challenges that I find, and there's an analogy here that I think makes sense when it comes to Donald Trump. If you see a man standing over the body of a murder victim holding a knife, it might be the killer. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes, though, it's the coroner. Different context, same situation. In other words, just because you see someone address a situation and say, this person is dead and they've been murdered, doesn't make that person the murderer. Just because Donald Trump is the focal point of making the case politically that the administrative state is hopelessly corrupt and that it is ruining our country and that we need to address, in order to reform this, we need to cut to the bone federal functions, federal bloat, that we need to attack the problem where it truly lies, in that swamp creature miasma of corruption and money and power. Just because you point to the chaos or the corruption and say that needs to be fixed and I can help fix it, doesn't mean you want that chaos and corruption. It means you're willing to point it out. It means that you want to fix it. But that doesn't mean that you like that it's there. They're saying, effectively, if the doctor says, you have cancer, we need to treat you for cancer, that the doctor wants you to have cancer because it helps him financially. That's basically the logic. It's utter crap. Senate Majority Leader, always reliable for a nice soundbite. Chuck Schumer was equally critical, saying that Republicans' warnings about a crisis on the border ring hollow when they now maintain it can wait until a Republican is in the White House. Suddenly, this crisis is not urgent. Suddenly, we need even more time. Give me a break. Today, this is the new Republican line. It's an emergency, but it can wait 12 months or until the end of time. If you have an emergency, if you are on the street and you've been mugged and you've been stabbed and you're bleeding out, having someone walk by and kick you in the face and saying, no, thank you, please don't kick me in the face. That's not saying I don't want help with my emergency. That's saying I don't want it to be worse. Please don't kick me in the face. Democrats offered the Republicans a kick in the face. And when Republicans said no, they're being accused of not taking the emergency seriously, of being hypocrite. I'm pointing this out mainly because there are people on the left who read this uncritically and go, yeah, that's totally how Republicans are. They take this seriously. This sounds like nonsense and hogwash to me, but I'm taking the time to go through it because there's a huge chunk of the political electorate that reads commentary like this and goes, yeah, that sounds about right. Those darn Republicans. I love this. Again, this is another little trick. Trump and his allies railed against the bill as a betrayal before it had even been unveiled, poisoning the well of potential support among the GOP. That is a valid charge if the allegations that you're making in advance of release are not factual. If you are making false claims or you've been fed false information and you say this bill is awful, it's going to do X, Y, or Z, that is just terrible, we can't do this, it's a betrayal, and then the bill actually comes out and it's nothing like that, then yeah, you were poisoning the well. You were trying to trash it using factually false information. The released bill is identical down to very specific details, like the number of illegal entries or approaches or whatever you call it per day on a rolling average that triggers certain other mechanisms in the bill. When you have the details that close and you're saying, here's what we hear about it and we don't like that, that's not poisoning the well. That's talking about it substantively. But from the political narrative perspective, if you accuse the other side of poisoning the well, then they get to be the hypocrites and you get to be the virtuous victims. Talking about going back to square one, doing foreign aid standalone, but there are now doubts on whether even that bill could pass the Senate and receive a vote in the House where many Republicans are opposed to the idea of helping Ukraine survive amid the invasion by Russia. Here's the reality of that situation. Ukraine and Russia are effectively in a civil war. This is a long-running grudge match where you have areas in Ukraine that are blended, that are part Russian and part Ukrainian. You have areas where it's contested. It's a little bit like the Balkans, where you have these incredibly deep hatreds, these blood feuds. You're not going to solve that by throwing money at it. Ukraine should have its sovereignty. Yes, absolutely. Russia is the aggressor. Absolutely. Throwing money at Ukraine does not solve Putin, and it does not guarantee Ukrainian sovereignty. What it does guarantee is that a whole bunch of our tax dollars get urinated away, sorry, trying to keep it friendly, into this well of corruption that is the Ukrainian state. Ukrainian government is corrupt. Sorry, Zelensky and everyone who thinks that he's awesome. Money that goes into Ukraine goes into all sorts of illicit operations. It is money laundering on a scale that boggles the mind. And throwing tens of billions of dollars at a chunk at this just enriches bad guys. That's how this works. And it should not be lost on you. What do Ukrainians need to fight Russia? They need bullets and bombs and tanks and jets and whatever. Who sells bullets and bombs and tanks and stuff to allies? Oh yeah, defense contractors here in America. So what we're doing is we're having the U.S. taxpayer fund a foreign country. Those funds then go right back into the coffers of the companies that sell the things, the weapons of war that that country needs to fight, thereby enriching those defense contractors and helping their bottom line. Who donates to politicians? Oh yeah, defense contractors. And I'm not just calling out defense contractors. Lobbyists like this happen across all sorts of industries. If you want to know why Republican and Democrats have their policy priorities, if they're part of that mainstream in the politician, if they're part of that permanent administrative state, for lack of a better term, they get their marching orders from the people who write them checks. That's how this works. If they stop taking marching orders, they stop getting checks. And those checks instead go to a primary opponent or to a general election opponent to remove that person and put in someone more compliant. That's how the game works. If you want to know where the true motives are, don't listen to the noise. Don't listen to the commentary about how virtuous it is to support Ukraine. Follow the money. It's a rule as old as time. It's a skill we need to get better at. Anyway, this is Nathan Lindorf with The Rational Independent. That's my Reddit rant for today. Good luck out there.